In the last session, we have seen about the relationship between Holy Qurbana and the Bible, or the main references in the Bible. In this session, we will be seeing about the Syro Malabar liturgy of the Holy Qurbana, the history of the Syro Malabar liturgical tradition. That is the main theme of this session. We know in India there are three Catholic rites in India. RITES. Latin Rite, the largest one, Syro Malabar Rite, and Syro Malankara Rite. We know well that Catholic Church is equal to 22 Eastern churches plus one Western church, that is Latin Church. Total 23 individual churches in the so-called Catholic Church. So then, what is a rite? That also we have to understand. What is a rite? As we say, Syro Malabar Rite, Syro Malankara Rite. So the canon law for the oriental churches, paragraph 28, CCEO 28, defines a rite as a rite is a liturgical, theological, spiritual, and disciplinary heritage differentiated by the culture and the circumstances of the history of peoples, which is expressed by each church sui juris, that means individual churches, in its own manner of living the faith. So mainly liturgical, theological, spiritual and disciplinary heritage that should be there in a rite. Then when we move on, in order to study about our Syro Malabar rite or Syro Malabar liturgical tradition, we should also try to learn the church history, divisions in the church, then Eastern and Western churches. Therefore, in short, we are going to study from the origin of the church, early Christian church. Then we move on ahead till today. So we have heard number of times about Eastern Church and Western Church. So when somebody quotes from a church father, East or West, so actually what does it mean in our Catholic faith about the East and West or Eastern and Western churches? The church had its beginning in Palestine after the historic Pentecost in Jerusalem. Then it spread to other regions of the world. The distinction of East and West came into existence of the end of the 3rd century. It was Emperor Diocletian who, for the convenience of governance, made this division of the Roman Empire. Based on this division, the church also came to be known as Western and Eastern. The church that developed in and around Rome was called the Western Church or the Latin Church, and the other churches that developed in the other 5 centers, either in the Eastern Empire or even more east to it, were called Eastern churches. These centers were Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople, Armenia, and Chaldea. So now we have understood that when the Roman Empire of that time divided into East and West by Emperor Diocletian, the church also took that geographical name for to denote the churches. Therefore, what all churches or the church developed in and around Rome is called Western churches, mainly the Latin Church, and the other 5 centers of the East, namely Alexandria, Antioch, Constantinople, Armenia, and Chaldea. So these churches or churches developed in these areas are called Eastern churches. These are the main difference. We should keep it in our mind about East and West, or Western churches and Eastern churches. Okay. Then we move to the Oriental churches or Eastern liturgical traditions. We have main five traditions. Origin and development of the important Eastern liturgical traditions. We have Alexandrian tradition, Antiochian or West Syrian tradition, Armenian tradition, East Syrian tradition, Byzantine tradition. So one thing we have to keep it in our mind that Latin Church developed in and around Rome at that Rome of at that time, Roman Empire. Then we have the Syro Malankara Church, which is familiar to us in India. They belong to this West Syrian tradition or Antiochian tradition. Therefore, even they follow West Syriac. Okay, so we are not going to speak much about their tradition because we have to study about Syro Malabar tradition and East Syrian tradition. That is our tradition. Now, Syro Malabar Church belongs to East Syrian tradition or Chaldean tradition. Okay, so now we are going to see more about the East Syrian tradition. There are three branches in the East Syrian liturgical family. So we have said that there are totally five Eastern traditional liturgical traditions. So in that we belong to East Syrian tradition. So East Syrian tradition have got three branches. One is Assyrian, used by the Assyrian Church of the East in the Middle East, and Chaldean, used by the Chaldean Church, Catholic, in the Middle East and elsewhere. Syro-Malabar, used by the Syro-Malabar Church in India and elsewhere, Catholic. So the Assyrian Church is not Catholic, and but they follow the same East Syrian tradition. But Chaldean and Syro-Malabar both are Catholic, and they belong to this East Syrian tradition. So why we have this East Syriac liturgy? Because our liturgy belong to or originated from this Chaldean liturgical tradition. We move to learn much about the development of this East Syrian liturgical tradition. The East Syrian liturgical tradition is also called Mesopotamian or Persian or Chaldean tradition. This liturgical tradition had its origin in the ancient Mesopotamian church in the Persian Empire. Why we say all this, the Persian Empire? Because when we study about our Kerala Nasrani church history or St. Thomas Christian, the church history of St. Thomas Christians, we find that we received our bishops and priests from Persia. So this tradition comes from Persia or Chaldean or that Mesopotamian, because St. Thomas first went to Persia to evangelize, and from there he came to India. He landed in Kodingalur in Kerala. So we should know the way, the root of our liturgical tradition also. Okay. Edessa was a center which gave shape to the characteristic features of the Mesopotamian Persian liturgy. So Edessa was the main study center of all this liturgy and theology of Eastern theology or Eastern churches. Edessa was the influential and intellectual home of Syriac language and Semitic culture. The anaphora of the apostles, Addai and Mari, is the typical anaphora of East Syrian tradition. Which is this Addai and Mari anaphora? The anaphora we use in our Holy Qurbana is called the anaphora of Addai and Mari. And we have to be proud of it, because now when the liturgists study about the anaphoras of Eastern churches or even the Catholic churches, we find this is one of the most ancient anaphoras in the liturgical world. Therefore, we should be proud of it. Okay, then here let us try to understand. We will learn much about when we study about the anaphora, the different parts of the Holy Quran. That time we will learn much about this, what is the importance of Adai and Mari. So one thing we should note is that Adai and Mari, who composed this anaphora for us, which we use in our Holy Qurbana, the anaphora means that Eucharistic prayer. In English, we can translate it in that way. Okay, so that was originated in Edessa and Persian or Chaldean Mesopotamia. These are the region or the geographical area where the Eastern liturgy developed and flourished. From there, we have received our liturgical tradition. Okay, we owe to this Chaldean liturgical tradition. Then again, Syro-Malabar liturgy. So till then we have spoken about the Chaldean liturgy or East Syrian liturgy. So we are now concentrating on our Syro-Malabar liturgy. The St. Thomas Christians had close contact with the Mesopotamian church or Persian church, common apostolic origin by the preaching of St. Thomas the Apostle. Linguistic affinity of Syriac language, commercial contacts, geographical vicinity, and cultural affinity might have accounted for the influence of the Mesopotamian liturgy on the liturgy of the Indian Church of Thomas Christians. The Malabar liturgy was not a mere copy of the Mesopotamian liturgy. There were many remarkable liturgical elements of Indian origin. So, here in the Syro-Malabar liturgy, as we have seen, our liturgy tradition is from Chaldean liturgical tradition or East Syrian liturgical tradition. But ours is not mere copy of it, but we have also have got elements of Indian origin also. Then till 16th century, there was the uninterrupted tradition of the East Syrian liturgy in Malabar. The Synod of Diamber in 1599 marked the beginning of the Latinization of the East Syrian liturgy of Malabar. After a long period of Latinization, the members of the Syro-Malabar Church were alienated from the proper East Syrian tradition. Syro-Malabar people themselves stood for a Latinized liturgy. So this is what happened in the history of the Syro-Malabar Church. We all know about it till 16th century, till the arrival of the Portuguese, or even till the Diamber Synod. We had a clear liturgical tradition from the East Syrian liturgy, that is directly from the Chaldean liturgy, East Syrian liturgy. It was uninterrupted. So when the Portuguese came and when the Latin missionaries came, there were some problems with the Eastern churches or from St. Thomas Christian. They did not understand that we are following a Catholic tradition or a real good liturgical foundation or tradition we had. So they wanted to Latinize. So they thought what is not Latin is not Catholic. So they started started Latinizing. So for a simple reason, I would say that according to the Eastern traditions, we administer the sacraments of initiation together at the time of baptism, chrismation or confirmation, and the Holy Eucharist. We know that was interrupted. For a certain time, we were giving separately baptism, confirmation, and Holy Communion. This was or this came from the Latin Church, and now we are giving all these sacraments of initiation together at the time of baptism because we have gone back to the our origin of our liturgical tradition. A restoration of Syro-Malabar liturgy. Holy See stood for the restoration of the East Syrian tradition. Syro-Malabar Pontifical and Qurbana were restored according to the East Syrian tradition. The restored text of the Qurbana was promulgated in 1962, experimental text in 1968. Restored Rasa, the most solemn Qurbana, was inaugurated by Pope John Paul II in 1986 at Kottayam in Kerala. So these are the historical facts we find about the restoration of Syro Malabar liturgy. In dignity, so the equal value should be given to every individual church and its liturgy, and we should preserve the liturgy of every individual church. That is the beauty of the Catholic Church. Therefore, the restoration of the Syro Malabar liturgy started, and this was from the church itself and the Holy See itself. So we have this renewed or the first Rasa Qurbana of the restored form celebrated or inaugurated by Pope John Paul II in 1986 at Kottayam in Kerala. So then we have seen here the development of the liturgical tradition from the very beginning of the West and East, and how the Eastern liturgical tradition, the five main Eastern liturgical traditions we have seen. In that we have also learned that we belong to, or Syro Malabar Church belongs to East Syrian tradition, East Syrian tradition, or Chaldean tradition, liturgical tradition. Therefore, I conclude this session with the meaning of the term Qurbana according to Caritatis. Offering meaning gift, offering meaning the action of offering. Qurbana is to be seen more as an action than as a gift. The Eucharist draws us into Jesus' act of self oblation. More than just statically receiving the incarnate Logos, we enter into the very giving dynamic of His self. So therefore, the Qurbana, the real word meaning of Qurbana is offering. So offering in the sense it is not mere as a noun, as gift. More than that, it is an action, offering as an action. So Jesus is offering Himself in the Holy Qurbana to the Father, and the community is offering along Jesus. So Jesus, that's why we also say that the victim and the priest also is Jesus. This is the one who gives or who is offering to the Father the gift, and the gift is His body and blood. So let us remember this explanation also about Holy Qurbana. It means offering, but more than a gift, we can remember it as an act of offering, the action of offering. Thank you.